Hello and good morning, Brian. How are you doing today?
Morning. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. What an exciting book. I mean, I can't be the only one that's going to say this today. I had no clue that I knew as many quotes as I really do.
I know what you mean.
It's such a book of traveling into the past, but at the same time, why is it that I feel more empowered today to read the stories about why they even came into play? Because you took the time to do the research on the quote, and now it's like, wow, I can actually activate this in my own personal life.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I want to believe there's a resurgence in an interest in movie watching. I mean, but I think it's always been there. You can't just point to Barbenheimer and say, you know, that is the one metric that shows that people love movies. I think people always have. I mean, and I also think when writing this book on iconic movie lines and, you know, exploring their origins and their influences and, you know, how they came to be, how they've ricocheted through the culture, it was during the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And a lot of us were locked down and a lot of us were watching, 2 and 3 movies a day anyway. And I feel like that might be part of the resurgence, if that's what you're getting at. I don't know. Pure speculation.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm still binge watching. I mean, I actually, in my day with my wife, we have a certain time in the afternoon for lunch. We're binge watching. And you're right. I mean, because it became a part of our lives. And I'll tell you, I'll hear a line today in a show and I'll go, classic, hang on to that one. That one's going to be a big one.
Bye, Felicia and Friday. That's a line that is memed to death, and why. And it has, there's a lot of lines like that, just amazing journeys, just kind of discovering why they became so popular.
Do they know that it was going to become a big hit? Because I've seen Matthew McConaughey talk about, all right. That was basically an ad lib that became part of a movie.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, how many times have, did Coke Zero or Pepsi Clear become a hit? No. I mean, some things people try to push on you and it doesn't work, and some things do. And in the case of McConaughey with all right, I mean, he has carried that line with him throughout his entire career, has reused it in speeches and in other movies. And I mean, it doesn't hurt that Dazed and Confused is like the greatest hangout movie of all time. But, there are instances where I think screenwriters sit down at the keyboard and they do type out a line and they go, yeah, that's gold. That's going to be a good one. I mean, that does happen too.
Like magic mirror on the wall. How many times have we used that in our life?
That's one. I mean, the one I was thinking of is "Are You Not Entertained" by Gladiator, and like the screenwriter John Logan, when he typed that, he knew. He told me, he was just like, "Yeah, I know at some point this line is just going to explode." He felt it, and good for him that he was right.
You had to have, you must have had fun with this, because I mean, this is the kind of thing that really creates conversation. Especially, I mean, it's almost like it's a book that you put in your living room, and you just kind of page through it when you're binge watching something and go, oh my God, let's go in there just to watch this movie for this quote right here.
Yeah, I had that in mind. I mean, if it's a living room coffee table, great. If you keep it on your toilet tank, perfectly appropriate too. But I structured it in that way. It's like, yeah, it's a pick up and put down book, right? Like, I want it to be something that, maybe you knock out a couple a day or whenever you feel like it. You flip back and forth. You're in the mood to explore all the noir films of the 40s and kind of get to know the famous lines from there. Great. It's up to you.
See, and that's what listeners need to understand too. I mean, you go back. These aren't just the movies just back to the Star Wars era. I mean, you go all the way back to the 1920s, even with the jazz singer.
Right. I mean, well, there are lines back there that, like, we maybe know as an expression. Mm-hmm. Would you? So you got to include it. Yeah, you got to dial away to when we started talking in movies. Totally.
So where did you go to find the information as to how a particular line became a part of a movie? I mean, because that to me, the journey to locate the answer would be fascinating.
Yeah. The research is always the most fun part. I think that in the case of the pandemic, you're watching movies, you're watching Blu-ray commentaries, you're sucking down biographies and different books of criticism that have already been written. You're, and by the way, and as I mentioned, like during the pandemic, there were tons of filmmakers and screenwriters that were sitting by the phone and had the time. Mm-hmm. And so if you found their email and wrote them and said, hey, do you have 10 minutes to tell me about the most popular line that you've ever typed out, like in your life, I mean, they will call you back. So there were a lot of resources to go to, which was great.
I know what it's like as a radio talent to be able to say something on the air that comes from out of nowhere. I can't imagine what it's like for the directors or even the actors when they deliver that line in the perfect pitch, volume, and tone.
Mm-hmm. Or how many times it took them to do it.
Right.
I mean, it's a different story every time, right? Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Totally.
What quotes are we getting wrong? Because we get a lot of them wrong.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what? Well, what is the Empire Strikes Back line, right? Where he's like, "No, I am your father." When I think we all know it is Luke, "I am your father."
Yeah.
I didn't try to focus on that too much, because I didn't want to I wanted the lines to speak for themselves. I didn't want to be this voice in the book that was being like, "Well, actually, you're getting it wrong."
Right.
I mean, I think, if you know the essence of the line, you want the story of the line, and that's good enough for me,
Yeah, to me, it's like saying.
Totally. Yeah, just mumble along.
How about Renee Zellweger? You had me at hello. Oh my God! When I can still hear her saying that even today.
Yeah, it's so funny. I actually wanted to title the book "You Had Me at Hello,"
Really?
The definitive guide to iconic movie quotes. I lost that debate with the publisher, which I'm fine with. You Talking to Me is just as good.
Yep.
But yeah, Jerry Maguire is an all-timer. I'm all about it for sure. And I did go at length writing about Jerry Maguire and about other movies. Sometimes there are movie lines that have longer stories than others, and they require the extra pages to explain it,
Yeah, there's some famous speeches in movies that you sit there and you go, my God, let me hear that again.
Oh, I mean, there's a couple Peck and Paw movies I hit rewind on, not so much for the lines, but just for certain slow-mo scenes. He's famous for using different speeds on his camera, and there's this one rodeo drama called Junior Bonner where Steve McQueen punches out Joe Don Baker, and it's just a very funny scene. I've hit rewind on that quite a few times over the years.
Wow! So you kind of touched on Star Wars. Was "May the Force be with you"? Was that in the original script?
Yeah, that was like a line that Lucas wanted them to say, and it caught on quickly.
Yeah,
as did everything else from Star Wars, which is. Now, I mean, it's everywhere now, obviously.
Are there famous lines in movies these days? Because, to me, Sylvester Stallone and even Arnold Schwarzenegger were the masters at dropping one-liners.
The movie theater and the video store were places that you would go, as a kid, or it's what you would do for date night. Everyone was gravitating towards those places, and therefore you were watching movies all the time. And I think that now media is more diversified. You have TikTok, and your relatives are on Facebook all day,
yeah.
and I just think we're consuming different audio visuals in different mediums. So it's apples and oranges a little bit there, So that's why you're not hearing lines as often come out and kind of be solidified as these things that are in our culture and our lexicon every day.
Absolutely. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future. 10 minutes with you is not enough, dude, because people need to hear your entire story.
I'd love to. Sure, anytime.
Absolutely. Will you be brilliant today, okay, Brian?
Okay, I'll try.